You've got to be kidding me. The prosecution cannot get anything right. They can't get any of the evidence that they need in smoothly. Now, in every trial I've covered, every single case, I know the defense cross-examines people, but it's rare when this many things continue to pop up, even in a retrial where you have a second opportunity, a second chance to get everything right. And Hank Brennan has done much more right than the prosecution did first time around. Much more. The case is streamlined. It's moving. The presentation is much more precise. But my goodness, in presenting this new evidence and this new expert, it's like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What happened here with this expert, this so-called clock drifting expert? It's just, this trial is a box of chocolates. Every day we open it up and we start watching and we never know what we're going to get. To not have your case line up like you want it is frustrating as a prosecutor. But those problems are compounded when you have other issues. And nothing is easy for the prosecution in this case. Nothing has been easy from the beginning. And there's a lot of reasons why, and people may have differing opinions as to why. Some would say because she didn't do it. Others would say because they're covering something up. And some people would say, well, it's just what happens. It's the nature of the beast, or it's, dirty tricks by the defense. Whatever it is, the jury only knows what they see. And I don't know what they just saw with this expert. Because remember, every expert is subjected to an expert from the other side. And it becomes a battle of credibility, a battle of the experts. And will this clock drifting expert win the case for the prosecution? Remember what Hank Brennan said in his opening statement. It was all about the timeline. It was all about the digital evidence. And this guy right here, crucial witness for the prosecution. Did his testimony make sense? Was he credible? Was he not credible? Will he make the difference? That's what we're going to talk about. I'm Vinny Politan. I'm the lead anchor for Court TV. I have 2 hours of live true crime that I host each and every night on Court TV from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. I come here to live stream to you on social media when I have time to and when I'm able to do it. This is one of those moments. Welcome to Vinny Live.
Worldwide, it's Vinny Live. Get ready, get set, let's go. It's true crime, streaming live. Worldwide, it's Vinny Live. It's true crime, streaming live. Worldwide, it's Vinny Live. Get ready, so post inside the chat. Get ready for the prosecutor hat. Get set to like and to subscribe. Let's go. It's time for Vinny Live.
All right, folks, I'm back at the home base after a week up in Dedham at the Karen Reed trial. What a week it was. Live studio audiences, getting inside the courtroom, meeting all the folks up there in Dedham. It was a great week. It really was a great week. But now it's time to talk about this week and what's happening this week. This expert is absolutely crucial for prosecutors. Absolutely crucial. And that's based upon the prosecutor's own words, Hank Brennan. He said, witnesses, credibility, bias, blah, 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 blah. This is digital evidence. this evidence doesn't have a bias. But what it does have is a little bit of adjustment, a little bit of clock drifting. Now, this actual term, clock drifting, I never heard before. Time shifting and things like that I've heard, but actual clock drifting is a new one for me. This is the basis, right? So the basis of this expert's testimony is that he took the Lexus data and figured out a timeline based on the dates, the timestamps of the Lexus data, and compared it to the cell phone data from John O'Keefe's phone. And that was Ian Whiffen, the guy with the English accent, the former Canadian cop who now works for Cellbrite. So they're experts in the same space, right? Or they've testified, and this is kind of where they are in the digital world. But what this expert is saying is that the timestamp and the Lexus data was wrong. So it had to drift. It had to go, well, on your screen, it looks this way. It has to go to the right. He had to drift it forward. So the clock, the time had to move from where it was stamped according to another expert that works for his firm, Aperture, and then he had to adjust it so it would all line up. Now, when you just think about that, if you're taking data and lining it up so it fits together in your timeline, that doesn't sound right? It sounds like, wait a minute, you need to explain that to me. Why do you have to manipulate the data to make it make sense? Right? So from that perspective, that's a problem for prosecutors, right? It's a problem you didn't want. You would just want everything to line up as is. You don't want to have to manipulate the timestamps in order to make your data fit together in a timeline that actually is possible and makes sense. Because this guy, Shannon Burgess, works for Aperture. And there's another expert who filed a report in this case, and his timeline, if you go by it, has the triggering event, the reverse of the car, the collision happening before John O'Keefe's phone is locked. And I think it's a text message is checked, like the face is used to open it up, and then it's locked after the triggering event. So what this expert did was realign the SUV data so the collision event would not occur before John O'Keefe is locking his phone. Because if he's run over, he's not going to lock his phone afterwards. So they had to readjust the timing of the SUV data to line up so that John O'Keefe, according to their timeline, would get struck by the car after he had locked his phone, not before. That's a problem. Okay, that's a problem on its face. And if a good defense lawyer makes the argument the way he should, it could be very effective. So now prosecutors have a problem that they need to solve. So they need to explain this to the jury. And I understand what prosecutors will say here is that, listen, the times were different. The space between events is the same and lines up. It's just that the timestamps are off. It's like your watches are out of sync. So all he did was sync it up. The problem is that you're changing data to fit your timeline. Again, if the defense argues this the right way, it could be very effective with one or all 12 jurors in this case. experts who work for the same firm having different times. The second one, using his expertise, slides it over, takes the time and slides it over. So now the SUV data and the phone data don't conflict. They don't conflict. And what he attempts to use as the event to line it up is he goes to the 3-point turn. John and Karen were driving to Fairview. On their way to Fairview, they're going down Cedar Crest. I drove this road a bunch of times. As you're driving down Cedar Crest, what they're saying is they pass Fairview and they pass it, and then they make the 3-point turn. And what he is saying is that the 3-point turn is indicated in the SUV data and was also indicated in the phone data. So he takes that event, and regardless of what time stamp it was, he syncs up and shifts the SUV data. So the 3-point turn in the SUV data is happening at the same time as the 3-point turn in the phone data. And then they move forward from that point, and all the time now, or the clock, has drifted or has shifted for the SUV data. So now the triggering event occurs after John O'Keefe locks his phone. Now, the jury may accept that explanation of the manipulation of the data by the prosecution experts to fit the timeline and say, oh, okay, that's fair. You're allowed to do that. Some may say, why are the experts changing the numbers? Why are they changing the numbers? That's not right. The numbers are the numbers. And I guess the big question is, like, your car, and on my car, I don't set the time. The time is automatically set. So is the time on cars different than the time on your phone? It's not like an old-fashioned clock in a Lexus. You don't go in and reset the time like we used to do back in the old days on our VCRs. We don't spin it around like we used to do on the old-fashioned clocks or on our old-fashioned watches. It like comes from somewhere. Like, I always thought it all came from the same place. But apparently not, according to this expert. I guess they have a different source for what time it is exactly, and it's off by 21 to 29 seconds. That's a pretty wide gap. Now, will the jury accept this? Will the jury accept this explanation? Will the jury accept this process? Will they trust this expert? And that brings us to issue number 2. Credentials and credibility. So yesterday, the defense spent a lot of time talking about this expert and his credentials, specifically his education. That it was indicated on his company's website and on his LinkedIn account that he had his college, 4-year college degree. He doesn't. He has a 2-year associate's degree, not a bachelor's. He's got an associate's degree of 2 years. And for 17 years, he's been working on the last couple of years of that degree, which he apparently has never gotten. But on the website, it indicates, on his company's website, it indicates that he had it. And on his LinkedIn, I hate that word, LinkedIn profile, it was also on there. Big thank you to Cheryl Sabin Hobbs for sending stars on Facebook. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Now, This was a big issue because there's a big difference. An expert who misrepresents their education and or experience, that's a problem. Goes directly to credibility. Can you trust them? Can you believe them? Are they qualified? Now, the bottom line is you don't need that 4-year degree to be qualified. The problem is if you lie about that 4-year degree. And it's interesting the way he dealt with it, because basically he said, my LinkedIn 10 years ago, I don't even remember. I didn't update it. What do you mean update it? Like update it by saying I didn't get a degree I had? When you update your LinkedIn, you usually add stuff. You don't subtract stuff when you update it. So I didn't buy that. I didn't buy that part of his explanation. Then he said, the website, that's not me. That's not me. I have nothing to do with that. That's people in the office. Okay. It could be people in the office. But let me just think about this for a second. This is where a jury can use their common sense and where I'm using my common sense. I've worked at places like this, companies that have websites, and every time they put something about me up there, first of all, it usually comes straight from me. And if it doesn't, they send it to me and say, is this accurate? Is this correct? Is there anything you want to add, subtract to what we are putting on our website about you? So these people who posted that he had this degree obviously got it from somewhere. They didn't like hire a private detective to find out the background of one of their own employees. I presume, like any other place where you work, they asked him. And I don't know if he purported to have that, or I don't understand it. Because you don't need the degree to be an expert. You can rely on what education you have and what real life experience you have, and outside of college training that you have, which might actually be more important in this particular line of work. It's not an engineer. It's not accident reconstruction. It's not biomechanics. It's reading Cellbrite, printouts, basically, is what it is. So you get trained in the software. You get trained in reading this stuff. So it wasn't necessary. But his explanation as to why it would be there, I didn't update my LinkedIn. No, you lied on your LinkedIn, which isn't a crime. You can lie on your LinkedIn if you want to. But is it true to say I didn't update it? Update, you add your experiences. You don't subtract. Then number two, I thought the prosecutor did a nice job in trying to reclaim the credibility of his expert by focusing on the CV that was provided to the court and that was provided to the defense, where that degree was listed, but with the disclaimer that he was pursuing it. It didn't say how long he was pursuing it, but apparently it's about 17 years, but he's pursuing it. So in the actual CV that was provided to the defense and part of the court record here, he didn't lie, unless he's not really pursuing it. I don't know. What does that mean? I guess that's a term of art, pursuing. Is he currently enrolled in classes? I mean, how many classes over the course of 17 years have you taken to finish the degree if you are pursuing it? So that could be a fudge in and of itself. I would have cross-examined him about pursuing. Anyhow, neither here nor there. But then on the recross, they brought up another case where in federal court, he had listed the degree. His way around that was that I didn't provide that information. It was provided by the folks at work. So again, he's pointing the finger at like the office staff at Aperture, that he is not responsible for the information that is being forwarded to the court because he's the expert. No, I don't do that. Somebody else does it from Aperture. So now the jury has to decide, is he like trying to be a little too cutesy here with all of this? Is he trying to pull one over? Is he trying to present himself as being more educated than he is, formally educated than he actually is? And if so, the jury can use that to determine his level of credibility when it's time in the battle of the experts, because the defense is going to have someone who's going to say something different, obviously, than this expert. It happens in every case. So is this a deciding factor in whether or not to believe this expert and his clock drifting theory of the case? Because that's a you've got to get the jury to accept that. Even with a 1,000% credible expert, you still have to get them to accept that you are manipulating and changing the times on some of the data. But now you've got to get them to accept it from someone who may or may not have fudged his qualifications. This is a problem. This is another problem for prosecutors. I wouldn't put this on Brennan as much as I would as Aperture. Like, they shouldn't have had that on their website. They should vet all the information that they put out there, because this now becomes an issue for every other case this guy's ever testified in. And all those folks in cases where they lost and he was an expert, they're going to look back at it and all of a sudden there may be an issue. So is he being too cutesy here, or is he actually trying to pull a fast one? Is he lying? Where does his credibility stand? And how will his credibility be judged next to an expert that the defense certainly will be calling to the witness stand? These are problems. These are big problems. And it just feeds into the defense and gives them more ammo, which you don't want to do. You want your experts to just be experts, and you want them to be judged, yes, on their qualifications, but the logic of what they're trying to explain to you. So two problems here for prosecutors that I think sort of pile on top of one another. Can they overcome it? I guess they can. But remember, the other expert with the other timestamp, I think he's got to testify too. What's that testimony going to sound like? You put this time and your partner comes along and takes your time and drifts it down the road by 20, 22 seconds, 25 seconds. Thank you to Sue Fort, sending stars on Facebook. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. All right. We've got a lot to get to here. Welcome, folks. Great to have you here. I will be getting to comments in just a moment. I'm just checking a couple items here real quick. But want to let you know, it was really a great week up in Dedham. We had a great week up there with our live studio audience, live guests, and being at the courthouse and seeing how everything's going there. A lot different than last year in many respects.
To get happy, it's time to get funky. It's time for us to smile, because here comes Mick Spunky.
All right, a big thank you to Mick Spunky today with a super sticker. Always great to have a little break as I step off my soapbox. Thank you, Mick Spunky. As this trial continues, it's much different than last year. I think the focus is different. And I think this year we are really, really, really much more so than last year, zeroing in on this timeline. And that's because that's where prosecutors want to be. They want to live in this timeline. They want to convict Karen Read based upon this digital evidence. So it's evidence that the jury needs to trust, and trust to a great extent. But will they trust the clock drifting expert Burgess, Shannon Burgess? or will they have a problem? All right. Let's see. You know, a lot of people said he was, and you can see it in this photo. Let me show you. I'll make it bigger. A lot of people said he was turning red during cross-examination, but I think his face is always flushed like that. I'm not of the school that that he was turning red because of it. I just think that's the way it was. But it wasn't a great day. It's tough being an expert witness, but it's real tough if you have a problem. And let me give you an example of what happens to experts once their credibility has been undermined. His name's at the tip of my tongue, but the blood spatter expert from the staircase case, Michael Peterson, North Carolina. I covered that trial years ago. What was it? 2003, whatever it was, the original trial. I was there. I was in the courtroom. That blood spatter experts, it was determined that he had faked some of the results of some of his testimony in some of his cases. As a result, all of his cases were undermined, including the staircase and Michael Peterson, and the fact that that expert was not truthful in one of his cases, and I'm not even sure if he was or was not truthful in the staircase case. But because of that false testimony as an expert, Michael Peterson's conviction was overturned. He was given a nolo contendere, time served, and he walked out of prison after being convicted of red rum. So this is important. This is very critical. And that expert's career obviously ended as an expert, because once, as an expert, if you don't have credibility, you don't have a career. Period. End of story. That's just the way it works. And what generally happens in litigation when experts are hired, good attorneys, whether it's in a civil case or in a criminal case, they will research all the other times that you've testified in court, and they'll take a look at, and they'll buy the transcripts, and they'll take a look at what you've testified to in the past. And it seems that the defense did that to a certain extent today, uncovering a prior federal trial where he testified, and they allege that he, again, was playing cutesy with the court and indicated he had a degree that he didn't actually have. Mary Swampy, I wonder if Auntie Bev regrets her decision to allow this testimony. In my opinion, it was a complete waste of time. Thank you so much, Mary. No, she's allowed the testimony. I know both sides have been fighting about this, but in the first trial, the dog bite expert for prosecutors came in late, and she allowed that as well. So I'd rather that she allows it, but if either side needs a little extra time, allow them to have the extra time they need. So I think I have no problem with allowing it, but if something comes in a little late, give the other side time to prepare whatever sort of response that they need to prepare. And I think that's just fair in the game. All right. We've got some good comments here. Folks are starting to roll in a little bit. This is one of those, what I call one of my pop-up lives. There wasn't much lead time, because that's the way every day goes for me. Some days I say, all right, I know I'm going to have time. But because I'm preparing for my 8 o'clock show and my 9 o'clock show, 2 hours of live true crime. Okay, here's a question from Kelly something. Vinny, can you drill down what happened with his actual data testimony, direct, cross, and redirect? I am so confused. Now, Kelly, something. You have just told me something, right? If you're confused, how is the jury feeling right now about this? And sometimes jurors, when they get confused, they just ignore certain testimony. So his testimony about the data is this guy, again, he is getting the data. Oh, I wish I had a little toy car, but I don't have a toy car. He's getting the data from Karen Reed's SUV. And that data includes certain events, including reversing, that's not a word, the backing up or the putting in reverse of her SUV. Obviously, for prosecutors, that's huge because that's how they believe John O'Keefe was struck, when Karen Read put the car in reverse. The time of the car going in reverse, as extracted from the Toyota TechStream data. Lexus is part of Toyota, right? It's a fancy Toyota. So the TechStream data indicated a time of that car being put in reverse, which would be the time that John O'Keefe is struck. And that time happened before John O'Keefe opened his phone and apparently saw a text message and then locked his phone. So there's no way, like the defense was locked and loaded on this. There is no way, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, that John O'Keefe gets struck by Karen Read's SUV and then takes a look at his phone, checks the text message, then locks it, and then takes a few more of those 36 steps. The timeline didn't make sense. So this expert comes in and takes the time from his colleague at the same firm and then shifts it over. He actually, well, everything's reversed on television. So he shifts it forward 21 to 29 seconds because he does everything in a window of time. 21 to 29 seconds, he shifts it forward. So by shifting it forward 21 to 29 seconds, now the reverse event happens after John O'Keefe locks his phone. So now, if you believe the shifting, the shifting forward, if you believe the shifting forward, the clock drifting, then their timeline arguably makes sense and is like Justin Timberlake once was. It is now in sync. Okay? But if you believe the original report from his colleague from the same company, then it would be out of sync. So that's the breakdown of it. The defense wants to focus on his colleague's original time. They want to make this jury believe that this clock drifting, this shifting of time, is done solely because they realized that their report did not fit, did not make sense, and was going to lead directly to an acquittal of Karen Read. So they're alleging that this expert goes in, does a new report, and then shifts the time forward, knowing that if you don't shift the time, Karen Read is going to be set free because the prosecution timeline would not make sense. I hope that made sense, because this is a big deal. And I say it's a big deal, not just because the defense is making a big deal about it, but because the prosecutor told us in his opening statement that this is what the case is about. This is how I'm going to prove the case to you. Not through witnesses and their bias, but the data, the digital data that doesn't lie, that doesn't have a bias, but does apparently drift. Right? The data doesn't have a bias, but the person manipulating the data could have a bias. That's what I would say in the defense closing argument. This is a problem for prosecutors. It's a real problem. You have to prove the case beyond any and all reasonable doubt. You've got to erase those doubts. The defendant is presumed innocent. The presumption of innocence, you begin with tons of reasonable doubt. You've got to erase it all. All right. I'm scrolling through. Oh, by the way, when I was up there, I should grab the pictures. I'll grab them another time. I just don't have time. A bunch of folks showed up in Dedham, Massachusetts with their allegedly shirts. I think Maureen was up there. I remember Maureen. A couple other folks had their true crime merch. So don't forget, folks, you can get yours as well.
Hey everybody, I've got something for your body. You can wear it by yourself or with Frankie Valli. It's true crime merch from Vinny Originale. It's true crime merch. It's true crime merch. It's true crime merch from Vinny Originale. From Vinny Originale.
Yes, you can order yours. They'll put the link in the chat. And here's the link to get the true crime merch, including, and I don't know if you saw it, folks. Where is it? Right here. This for the summer, for the beach, for the pool. This is the Tangent True Crime Podcast beach towel. It's the outline of the victim, which can be you on the beach. Everybody will want one of those. All right. Let me remove that. All right, let's get back to some of the questions and comments. And don't forget, tonight, 8 o'clock, we'll be talking about this. I've got my insiders coming to us from Massachusetts tonight. 2 hours. The first hour, we'll talk about everything that's happening today. In the second hour, Vinny Politan Investigates. I'm going to take a look at 4 issues. 4 issues. 2 that can win the case for the defense, and 2 that can win the case for the prosecution. Fasten your seatbelts. All right. PJ, my phone connects to my car, same times. How about that? How about that? I don't understand why, like, because in a Lexus, you don't set the time. You don't set the time on your clock. It's like it's already there. Why would it be different? Don't they all get their time from the same place up in the sky somewhere? But maybe Toyota, sends it from somewhere else. I'm not an expert. I don't know. Thank you, PJ. All right. Some funny comments. Okay, and this is from Kathy over on Facebook. I almost felt sorry for Shannon, but then remembered how his dishonesty is trying to assist in convicting Karen for something she didn't do. Then I wish him whatever good old karma hands him. Free Karen Reed from Kathy Zacharias Rodriguez. Thank you so much, Kathy. Yeah, well, it's a red rum trial, so everything's at stake. Every witness is important. I don't know what the jury does here. I don't know what the jury does here with all of this. Last time, remember, the last jury with the ACA experts, they discounted their testimony because they were confused about where they came from and why they were involved in the case. So there was a lack of trust. And as soon as there was a lack of trust, they said, let's just forget about that and let's focus on the other evidence. Will the same thing happen here to the Aperture folks for the prosecution? And if so, again, it's a real problem for the prosecution. I'm a former prosecutor. I know about that burden. I know how difficult it is. All right. Just checking my, I check my work messages, make sure we're not missing anything. Here's from Nina79. Vinny, you Spanish or Irish? Split the difference. My name is Vinny. What do you think I am? Come on, think about it. Vinny. Not Irish, not Spanish. I'll let the rest of the viewers fill in the blank for you. Thank you so much, Nina, for watching. Truth Exposed. John got his rear end handed to him in that house, was all over that floor, and got 0 dog hair on him or DNA. How many lint rollers did it take? Truth exposed. Coming out strong, attacking the conspiracy theory. Thank you, Truth Exposed. Oh, Julia DeNurse. I love my Vinny merch. No one gets it here in Canada, though. Huh. I thought we were able to do international shipping. Maybe we can't. Sorry, Julia DeNurse. We'll try to figure that out. I'll work on that. All right. Oh, this is an interesting one that I'd like to address. Lori Thompson. Thank you, Lori. You should bring on reliable guests, Vinny. Well, here's been my approach throughout this case, because I know how divisive it is, and I know how there are two very passionate sides to each argument. And I know how every time I did a show, I would get messages attacking me for my extreme bias. I would get attacked by the Free Karen Read movement, and I would get attacked by the anti-Karen Read movement. So I know when I'm getting attacked by both sides that I'm actually doing my job. And what I do is when I bring on guests, I bring on guests who as much balance as possible on any given night. Not every guest is available on every night. And some guests, sometimes they vacillate a little bit in their beliefs, but I tell no guest what to say. I tell no guest what to believe. I just try to have an idea of where they are on this case and on some of the particular issues, and try to bring on a balance of guests each and every night. People who know the case also. You need to know the facts of this case. So I try to bring in people who know the case, are following the case, or watching the case, who understand the case, and people who have voiced their opinion of the evidence in the case, and then we just try to balance it off. So that's the thinking, Lori. Hope you understand how we do that and how I do that on my show. We don't have an agenda on my show. The agenda is getting to the truth. And in this case, the only way to get to the truth is to debate the facts each and every night as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Marianne Sarno, Vinny, don't you think that if a person is caught lying, that the testimony should be thrown out? No, it goes to, and the jury will get this instruction. If you believe, ladies and gentlemen, that any of these witnesses, expert or lay witness, was untruthful in their testimony in part or in whole, you can discount the part of their testimony you believe they were untruthful about, but you are also free to discount all of their testimony. So it's really in the hands of the jury whether or not to decide whether or not the person was untruthful and or lying, and whether or not they should reject just that part of their testimony or reject it all. And they'll get that specific instruction. That's the way it works in every trial. So, Mariana, I think that's a question for the jury. The question, and it's twofold. One, do they believe that the witness was not truthful? Because I believe this witness and the prosecution will not concede that he was untruthful. They're not going to concede that. What they're going to do is point the finger at the other people who work in the who work in the office and say that he said that he, in his CV, that he was pursuing the degree, pursuing it. So I don't think they'll concede that this was a lie. So I don't think you can accept as a uncontested fact that this witness was being untruthful on the stand. It's something that both sides will argue, and then it will be a question for the jury to decide whether or not he was lying and whether or not to reject part of his testimony or reject all of it. And they'll get the instruction that they are entitled to reject all of it if they want. And I think that's a good rule. And that's the way juries are. If they feel like you're lying about something, they're not, you're done. You're done. The jury is not going to rely upon you, especially in a criminal case. Glow T, please only tell the truth. All right, Glow T, I try to speak the truth. Thank you so much. And Vanessa Parova, of course, he's Italian. Vinny Originale. Thank you, Vanessa. And thank you, Glow T. And Gen X thanking Glow T as well. Gen X, of course, part of our incredible Best in the Business Mod Squad.
Order in the chat. Order in the chat. Don't dare attack. We've got order in this chat. The Mod Squad is on the job, helping us to keep it clean. The Mod Squad is on the job, always so nice and never mean.
All right, we've got Gen X, Frankie Figs, Jennifer Sube on YouTube, and Ashley Bouchard over there in the wild, wild west of Facebook. They help me not just during the live streams, but between live streams as well. You don't understand how much help they give me. So big thanks to the Best in the Business, our Mod Squad. Mo McDermott, who was up there in Dedham. Vinny, I don't understand why the medical examiner didn't say homicide as a manner of death, because he didn't die by self-inflicted death or natural causes. Did she think no one killed him? Yet the case is he either went in the house or not, right? So someone killed him. Arguably, yes, Mo, but there's one other manner of death, accidental. And no one is talking about this, but I did last night with my unbiased expert, Dr. Priya Banerjee. And I laid it out there. Based upon these wounds that you saw, could it have been an accidental death? And she said, yeah. Now, you'd have to explain the wounds on the arm. Could they be after he fell? But I think, and this wasn't articulated in the courtroom, and this should have been articulated in the courtroom, that it would have to be either homicide or accidental, which would make it undetermined. Because I still think the accidental is a possibility. The other explanation would be the arm wounds that might make it look a lot less probable that it's accidental, but could you eliminate accidental? I don't know. But I thought that was weird too. My Massachusetts guest lawyers did not think that was weird, but like, we cover trials in all 50 states. We don't get cameras in all 50 states, but we've covered cases in all 50 states. And like cause and manner, most of the time the medical examiner has an opinion. They don't say who did it, but they can say, that it was death at the hands of another. That's what homicide is, death at the hands of another. And it could be, self-defense is homicide. Manslaughter is homicide. It's just different types of homicide. All right. Still rolling through here. Got some good comments, good discussions. Common sense investigator. Mo, if they would have investigated properly, then the ME would have had more wiggle room to say homicide. And let me talk. It's a great point, common sense, CSI. Let me say something else about this investigation. It's not a great investigation. And I have a theory as to why it wasn't. There's obviously one theory by the defense that the reason it's not a great investigation is because it's a cover-up, right? So that's why it's not a great investigation. But if you want to put the allegations of the conspiracy and cover-up aside and just look at it like as an investigation, why it wasn't done well, I think there's two factors here. One, there was a rush to judgment. immediately. They believed this was car case. They believed there was a confession, and they thought this thing would go away very quickly and very quietly. That's number one. Number two, the blizzard. Nobody wanted to be out there. Sure, the men and women went out there to do their work, but they didn't want to be out there. If there was no blizzard, if it was springtime in Dedham, I think there would have been a much better investigation at the scene, much more thorough. But there wasn't, and prosecutors are stuck with that. And now the jury has to figure out why. Will they believe it's because there was a blizzard? Will they believe because it was a rush to judgment? Well, rush to judgment's not good either. Rush to judgment is you know what the result is already, and you're just going through the motions instead of looking at the evidence and figuring out where the evidence takes you. And where the evidence didn't take anybody was inside 34 Fairview. Will the jury be bothered by that? Some members of the first jury were. All right. I think I am current, which is great. All right, folks. So here's the deal. We've got some great comments and good conversation, right? You can disagree, just don't be disagreeable with each other. Don't make this has become very personal. And this is something else I learned up there in Massachusetts. I went into the belly of the Free Karen Read movement at the courthouse. And I arrived there with my cameras. Cody was with me as well. He's my muscle, right? So I go there, and some people were very willing to speak to me, and others were kind of saying, don't talk to him. Don't talk to him. And I get it. But if you spend 15 minutes together, 20 minutes together, a half hour together, and you just talk to each other, by the end of the day, you can disagree about things, not agree with what some people are saying or guests you have on your show, but we can get along about it. Like it's not a personal affront. See, with this case, and there's a phenomena taking place in this case, and that is there are a lot of people who, for the first time, are taking a really close look at our system of justice and are invested in a trial, a criminal trial. Now, I know there's a bunch of true crime people who've been following Court TV for years. I'm not talking about you. There's a bunch of people, though, who have come in on this case, and it's the first time they're going through this, right? It's the first time that they have been following an investigation, an indictment, listening to witnesses, watching a trial. And I love it. I love it. That's one of my goals at Court TV by putting cameras inside courtrooms around the country, is that everyone gets introduced to our system of justice. Hopefully they become viewers of Court TV, but at a minimum that they become familiar with our system of justice. And for two reasons. It's our government. Keep an eye on it. Make sure it's working, right? Number one. Number two, at some point you may get a notice in the mail to go down and serve as a juror. I like educated jurors. I like jurors who have some knowledge of our system so they understand their role and they understand what's happening inside the courtroom. I think that's great. I think it keeps our system very honest. But the other result of this is a lot of people who for the first time are following a criminal case and a criminal trial and all of these proceedings are seeing things that I see in many different cases, some things in almost every case that I've covered. And they're looking at it like, oh my goodness, this is the most outrageous thing ever, when it's pretty normal. I've never seen a perfect investigation by any law enforcement agency, but I've seen many law enforcement agencies solve crimes, sometimes solve very difficult crimes. But I've never seen a perfect investigation. ever. And I have seen criminal defense attorneys attack every investigation in every criminal case because they're never perfect. So the temperament of people who have come in here for the first time in this case, they've internalized it and personalized this, where people who are in the world of true crime day in and day out and watch trials and debate evidence, etc., understand that there are times where we will see things much differently. But it doesn't mean that we're arch enemies. It doesn't mean that we're all carrying some agenda. The level of hate that has been articulated online and in person, making it so personal. And once the first insult gets thrown, then it comes back twice as hard, and then it doesn't stop, it doesn't end. But every trial I've covered has had at least two sides. That is by definition how our system works. You've got a prosecutor trying to prove one thing and a defense team trying to demonstrate that they're not proving the case, that there's another way to look at all of this. It's every trial is like that. It'll happen in the Idaho case. It'll happen in the Madeline Soto case. It happened in Casey Anthony. I said it. It happened in George Zimmerman. I'm talking about all these public. Kyle Rittenhouse, it happened. Johnny Depp, it happened. Every case has at least two sides. Sometimes there's a third theory of what happened, which isn't even being argued in court. But just because you see the evidence differently doesn't mean you have to hate the other person. Because if you continue to follow the world of true crime, in the next case, you may see the evidence the same way. And it's not because people have changed. It's just the way they view things based upon their life experiences. And you know, that's what we bring to the table. Think of the public debating this trial as the biggest jury in the world. In the last trial, the jury couldn't agree. There were arguments and valid arguments on both sides, and the 12 there could not agree. So why would we think that the entire public would agree? It's just natural that they wouldn't. But you don't have to be enemies about it. It's not personal. It's not like, oh, this guy, I can't listen to this guy, or oh no, this person's in the chat room, I'm getting out of here, or you got to block that person. But no, different opinions. But there's no need for all the personal attacking that's going on as a result. Like everyone's got an agenda and a vendetta. It's crazy. And what we found in Dedham, when everyone was together, whether it's the guests or the audience, now the audience was predominantly pro Karen Read, but not exclusively, and everyone got along. I mean, you voice your viewpoint, and viewpoints can differ, and we debate them, and we never ever have to agree. We can continue to disagree forever about it. But you don't have to hate each other, and you don't have to attack each other, and then dig up dirt on this person. This person said Karen Read's not guilty, but did you see what they did back in 1996? Like, that's what's happening here. And it's sad because it's a trial. Yeah, it's a little different than the rest. It's a lot different than the rest, but there's a lot in common with every other trial that you'll ever watch on court TV, especially the ones like this that are super high profile. Even in the Alex Murdaugh case, there were a bunch of people saying, no way he did it. There were at least two people there. And I debated with them on air, in person, wherever. It's how we saw the evidence. This case and every case. All right. I'm out of time, almost. Larissa Harris, respect you, Vinny, but I believe Joe is representing an anti-Karen Read. I find him very biased being a defense attorney, and the state proved zero as of yet. Krowski's last client prosecutor, now convicted rapist, he's not immune to, I don't know what that means, man. Anyhow, Krowski is looking at the evidence and providing his perspective. He's also revealed to us that he previously represented Colin Albert at one point, doesn't represent him anymore, but did at one point. He's been very transparent about that, but that's the way he sees the evidence in the case. I mean, not everyone's going to agree with what the evidence says. And the last jury didn't agree. I mean, that should be the thing that should really tip it off, that it's obvious why people are disagreeing in this case. Now, what's also interesting in this case is, MA means Massachusetts. Okay. I thought it meant, let me take another look at that. He's not immune to Massachusetts. Okay. But that didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand exactly what that meant. INS, corn rake, the corn rake trial. We covered the corn rake trial. A lot of people think that guy was wrongfully convicted. Some people believe something else happened there. And people debated it. Truth and transparency. Informatics 438A proves Karen protected the niece. And Susan, again, that corn rake dude. Yeah, people didn't agree on that. Honestly, Vinny, is it this channel or Court TV you do the 8 and the 9 p.m.? It's Court TV. So Court TV, the television network. If you go on courttv.com, there's a little section where to find Court TV. So you can put in your zip code and it'll tell you where you can watch us. If you have a Samsung television, we are streaming on the Samsung Plus streaming network. We're on Roku. We're on the Pay for YouTube. We are in 40% of the cable systems in the country. We are in 95% of the markets on digital antennas. If you have one of those digital antennas, you can find us there. You can watch us streaming on courttv.com for free. That's every night from 8 to 9. Let's see. Common Sense Investigator. Did you hear the lady you filmed almost getting arrested for wearing a hoodie? Got arrested yesterday for wearing a hoodie. Yes, and we've got the video. We're going to show it tonight. 8 o'clock. You'll see that video. Thanks so much. All right. A lot of good comments flowing through here. And Tucker News Mom, the prosecution knew he wasn't qualified. Well, that's another issue. If you can prove that the prosecution knowingly put someone up there who knowingly was misrepresenting their qualifications, that's a problem. Marianne, oh wait, where is it? Marianne, 1953. Do you read comments on your Facebook page? Here's how it goes with reading comments on the Facebook page. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of direct messages. It's never ending. When I have time, I pop on and I'll scroll through whatever is appearing in front of me. But I literally don't have time to read every comment and every post on Facebook. Getting through the DMs is tough as well. You know, years ago, I used to be able to respond to everything, but thank goodness, because of the incredible support that Court TV and I've been getting on social media, it's a lot to handle right now. It's a lot. Like just finding the time to do this live stream, which is a great way for me to interact directly with you and read your comments and respond to some of them. It's difficult to find the time. So I'm glad I'm able to do this, but I do as much as I can. Okay. Well, so here's the deal. It's 5:39 if you're watching live. I've got to get ready for the show. 8 o'clock tonight, Court TV. Then 9 o'clock on Court TV. It's going to be awesome. We've got all the big moments, all the great analysis. We'll have some debate, I'm sure. And so truth and transparency. Karen goes out to her car to call John when she wakes up at 4:38 a.m. So she wasn't acting crazy in front of the niece like JM said. Thanks. Interesting. Rick Hamill. Can Google be compelled to testify? An employee could verify Jen's 227 Haas long search and the case is over and Jen is led away in handcuffs. Yeah, my understanding is that Google and Apple make it very difficult to identify the person who could testify to things like that. To bring in Google, you have to subpoena the specific person that you want. But to get that information from Google is difficult. And they likely do that on purpose because otherwise their employees would be flying all over the country all the time subpoenaed to testify. So that's why I think you may not hear from anyone from Google. They're very sneaky because they understand how much our digital footprint has become part of every litigation. Think about it. How many of these Google employees would be flying around the country subpoenaed day after day if it was really easy to know who you had to subpoena to get that information? Okay, Josie Liu and Company. Why was Burgess not asked how much did the Commonwealth pay for his testimony? Good question. He's not doing it for free. Not doing it for free. Okay. I don't get it. I don't get it. Why he wasn't asked? Because that's a normal question for every expert. Because every expert gets paid one way or the other. That's what they do for a living. Like that's like asking a lawyer if you're getting paid for, well, yeah, that's what you do for a living. Everyone's getting paid. Everyone in that courtroom's getting paid. The lawyers, Mr. Wolf, who hits the overhead projections, he's getting paid. The bailiff's getting paid. The lady who's doing this, taking the transcript, she's getting paid. The judge is getting paid. My goodness, the people covering it like me are getting paid. Everyone's getting paid. All right, so now's the time of the show. For those of you who don't know, I am a type 1 diabetic. And we have a little contest each quarter. Whoever can guess my blood sugar correctly the most times wins a prize from the Vinny Originale True Crime merchandise shop. You get to pick something out. So I've got my blood sugar all set. I'm checking it right now. And it's time for you, ladies and gentlemen, to guess my blood sugar.
He's a type 1. He's type 1. His pancreas is on fruits. He has diabetes, type 1 juvenile diabetes. And so it's time to guess, is more or less, what's his blood sugar? What's Vinny's blood sugar? Under 70, he gets lightheaded. Under 60, all the alarms start ringing. Over 180, he starts to get lethargic. But when it's 90, Vinny, eyes are singing. And so it's time to guess, is more or less, what's his blood sugar? What's Vinny's blood sugar?
All right, Larissa Harris, give me a lot of tea. And
yes, take a guess. Let's guess.
We'll take a look at her. In the meantime, we've got a winner.
Now
Thank you, Larissa. Polar Bear Sheep. 120 is the magic number today. Can you see that? 120, which to me, if I could be 120 24/7, I'll sign up for it any day of the week. So we're going to mark you down here in the official book. Polar Bear Chic. Got the 120 here on the 20th. Congratulations. So we're in the Q2, which is April, May, and at the end of June, we'll announce another winner. And if we have a tie, we pull a name out of a hat. So Polar Bear Chic, thank you so much. If I accidentally missed someone else who guessed it, I did not see it. So appreciate it. But I will check on Lana TNT on Court TV. Lana TNT. I'm going to write that down. Lana TNT. Figure out who she is. Lana TNT. All right, Polar Bear Chic. Great guess. Great guess. So that's it for now. Thanks to our mod squad. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for the great conversation. Thank you for being nice to one another and agreeing to disagree in a very nice way. I mean, you can have a forceful argument, but then at the end of the day, everything's okay. I'm Vinny Politan. I will see you 8 o'clock on Court TV. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.
Say goodbye. Thank you for watching Vinny Live. We'll be back, but I don't know when. We hope that you will watch again. Vinny Live. It's Vinny Live. Whoa, it's Vinny Live. To our awesome Mosh. Thank you for those super chats. Please hit the like and do subscribe. Let's do it again on Vinny Live. Now before you go, just one more thing. Please post below, say anything. Before you go, just one more thing. Please post below, say anything.